Bonjour, monsieur. Hello.
Hallo, was ist das?
Oh, this is the wrong podcast. Sorry. You have to. I
Oh,
think
it's right.
you have to dial somewhere else. I think you misspelled Le Parti here.
Well, I do what I can. But anyway, welcome to the party. Welcome, everyone. This is your weekly destination to hear everything that happens in the world of hospitality. My name is Jeremy, and I'm with Misha.
What we do is we dig through hundreds of different newspapers, mostly high quality newspapers, so you don't have to.
And basically, we'll keep you updated on everything that happens in the world as well, not necessarily just hospitality. If there's any papers, academics, or any new software that are important, we'll let you know.
And obviously, quick disclaimer: we add our own opinion on it. So the whole thing you're listening to is going to be subjective. We do provide links, but our opinion is also here. All right, Jeremy. How has your week been?
Let's dig right in.
Yeah.
Well, so far so good. The summer is coming here in Manila, so we have a good average of 33 degrees every day. Yay.
It's 9 degrees in Berlin, so it's I think it's feasible. You can already go outside and do sports outside without freezing your limbs off.
That's great. Good to know.
So
Definitely my thing.
I guess like you said, let's jump into it. There's quite a lot of different news. I think personally, I would love to start with something easy. So you've looked at Manila thrillscape. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah.
Uh, how
Yes, definitely. Well, Okada is a landmark in Manila when it comes to very high-end hotel. It's actually a resort. They have a major casino, which is also quite interesting as Manila has been trying to attract a lot of gamblers from China to be a competitor of Macau, for instance. So it's pretty interesting. And I like this piece of news because it's the first time ever that I see a luxury resort invest and build some sort of parkour track. We have seen resorts with like crazy things, pools. We've seen base jumping. We've seen roller coasters. All of this, but that I've never seen before, and I find it very interesting because it really shows the spirit of innovation in the hospitality industry and the absolute need to be different than the guys next door, which are Solaire, for instance, another super nice resort in Manila. And they just came up with this idea, and I find it super appealing for families, for friends, for athletes as well. And it's actually super affordable. The price, I think, the first package goes for 500 Filipino peso, which is about $10. So it's definitely something to look for when you're visiting Manila.
I mean, it basically is like a training camp for Ninja Warrior, right? So you can.
Can be, yeah.
I mean, for example, I don't know if you've seen the TV show, right? There where you can run up the thing, and at the end you have to click a button, and then you win. Um, that's pretty exciting, and you can gamble while you're at it.
And it's also, but it's also great because I'm sure they will be able to host many different events, and we know how important it is for sales, the sales department of a resort or hotel, to actually attract people in, whether it's for the rooms or for the restaurants, for the gambling, and now it's for that. And I'm sure there will be tons of events using this room and this infrastructures in Manila, whether it's for, as you said, some Ninja Warrior competition made in Philippines or whatever senior high school that wants to have some sort of physical education there, or why not maybe a major corporation that would have some team building there. All this will drive a lot of business to the resort, and I think it's a really great idea. I'm very interested in looking more of this type of innovation. It really de-dust a little bit our industry. I think it's really great. So I wanted to share that with you today.
I wonder when is going to be the day when they're going to put that on a cruise ship. So,
There's actually a lot of stuff on cruise ships like that. We have surfing simulators, we have zip lines, we have climbing walls, we have slides. There's tons of things already there. But the parkour thingy, I've never seen it before. There's a karting track on an NCL ship, so you can actually do karting on deck 16 or 17. So it's pretty badass as well.
karting. Okay. Well, um, I think it goes into the palette of all the things you can offer as a hospitality business, right, or as a service industry
And
sector.
that's really cool.
Yep. Well, on that note, maybe we can move into something
Sure.
more serious. I found it.
Something less fun.
Well, let's see. You can tell me at the end if you found it fun. So this week, Accor has, and then many other companies, right, have published their financial results for last year, and Accor's earnings basically have, as this article puts it, reached a record high. So they have now over, I think, about right around 800,000 different rooms they operate, and this year they've basically crossed the line of 1 billion euros EBITDA. Well, almost, 1 billion euros EBITDA. Now, everybody's pretty hyped. They're doing well, they're operating well, they've recovered from COVID. However, I just questioned it a little bit, right? 1 billion, okay? How does that look like compared to, let's say, 2000, I don't know, let's say 2007, right? Before the last financial crisis. And the numbers aren't really actually that positive. So what effectively you have is, let me just quickly jump on that. Here is, for example, the results from 2007. And you can see here, basically 2007, they had a consolidated revenue of 8.1 billion euros, while they have 5 now. And this revenue was with basically half the amount of rooms. So they had right around 400. There's a report from their own, right, from their own financial. It's basically a similar style report, annual kind of financial overview, for the stakeholders. They back then had right around 450,000 rooms. So right now they have 830,000, and they've made 8 billion. And from that, EBITDA was EBITDA was 2.3. So you could say they've recovered from COVID. However, they haven't really recovered as a whole, right? If you would be as an investor who, let's say, invested 10 years ago, 20 years ago, let's say, 15 years ago, right, 2017, effectively you would be now at a less profit margin than you were in 2007, which is, right? I mean, maybe not as positive if you look at the big picture. And then, of course, I thought, well, okay, how are the other guys doing, right? So I've looked at Marriott. We have Marriott here, right? So these are numbers from, this is their EBITDA for the past 10 years. Unfortunately, couldn't find data for 2006 or 7. But they have effectively, right? 2008 they were basically almost zero. In fact, they almost lost money. But still, right? It's a bit more net positive. Hilton, on the other hand, is it's you can see there is no net overall growth as much as it could be, right? So, for example, for Hilton here, this is right around 2012. They had a record revenue of EBITDA once again, 2.7 billion, and then now they had 2.4 billion. So I think overall, I mean, Marriott as well, if you actually look at the 2007 numbers, they are basically about the same. So they still haven't really broken the record for that period. So you can say a lot of the main hotel chains, right? While if you look at the past 4 years, yeah, they're doing great, right? Of course, they went from here, 400 million up to 4 billion, right? That sounds like an amazing increase. But if you look at the past 20 years, they're kind of at the same place they were in the beginning. So, hard to say. Thoughts from your side?
Yeah. Could it be maybe because of the rise of costs overall? Because we saw 2 weeks ago, we were looking at those report that shows that the average rate per room, the daily average rate per room has been going up like crazy. So hotel rooms are more expensive today than they were in 2007 for sure. That's completely sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are making less money, it's probably because the cost has been going a lot crazy as well. So
I mean, there's been inflation for sure, right? Maybe, right? We haven't looked at this into details, so I haven't looked at, for example, average ADR for these chains. Might have been that the ADR increased, let's say 20-30%, but like you said, the costs have, especially since COVID, when a lot of money printing was going on, the costs of just alone in the past few years increased by 10 or 20-30%, depending on the country, right? So,
and I think we can also talk about the human cost, because we know how difficult it is now to hire. It's difficult, to retain employees. So I feel like also the cost of labor has been going up, not just that we have to pay people more, but also because it's so much harder to hire people and to retain them. So this is probably some sort of role to play within this mix, I think.
But in a nutshell, right, with the big hotel chains, and I mean, this could be also very representative of other, hotel businesses are kind of stuck in the loop, right? So you haven't really, in effect, increased your business model, right? Or if you're a hotel operator, regardless, I'm assuming here, right? Probably a lot of chains have very similar numbers, right? Since inflation applies to all, and in fact, maybe the big chains can actually fight it a bit more because they can negotiate better deals, right? But still, um,
Definitely.
well, positive news in brackets, perhaps. On that note,
But it's
yeah,
it makes a nice connection with the news that we had just before. It really shows that we need to innovate to bring more business into our properties. So
and
hopefully,
get rid of those filthy costs.
innovation coming.
Sorry, filthy costs that work for your.
And think of all those filthy cost managers that come over and tell you like we have to log every single toilet paper roll that we put in the rooms and all these things. Well, it's just
Well, that sounded like you had a very tough personal experience. Okay, I think on that note,
driven business, right?
we can move on to a piece of news you've brought in. A very typical
Sure.
French piece of news, I would say. So, something coming all the way
What can we
from
do best?
Paris.
From Paris,
So,
capital of the world.
you had quite a lot of different things I think you've put together. Let me pop that open for you.
Yes, there's actually, the Olympics are coming, and pretty much every single, um, French major company that will be involved in that is like, oh wait, we can go on strike now because we have leverage over the government. So many people are going on strike, including the staff from the company that runs the Eiffel Tower. So the Eiffel Tower belongs to the city of Paris as well as the operation company that runs it every day. This company has quite a big amount of staff, and the staff has been going on strike because first they want to have better compensation, and also because they say the city of Paris has not invested enough money in maintaining the tower itself. So they claim that it is dangerous to have massive amount of tourists. So what you're showing is interesting because it shows that the Eiffel Tower is very Instagrammable, which of course it is, as it's quite of a landmark, but it's also the most visited paying landmark in the world visited. So basically, there's like millions and millions of people that come up and down the tower every single year. So what the company running the Eiffel Tower is asking for is renovation, more money, claiming that it's unsafe right now to operate the tower, which obviously it isn't, and of course better compensation. So it's an interesting story because we have a lot of other companies that are doing pretty much the same, like SNCF or RATP, which are the Paris Metro or the French National Train Company. Most of them have said that they might strike during the Olympics because they are right now negotiating better compensation packages. So would it be a shortcut to say that what my people do best is strike? Yes, it would. The right thing would say that my people are really good at negotiating. That's what we're good at. So I just wanted to bring this as an example of what's going on right now in my country with the Eiffel Tower itself. Even the Iron Lady is touched by the strikes.
It's very ironic. There's a lot of leverage here, obviously, right? Right before the Olympics, you're like, okay,
Tons.
this is the perfect time for ask for extra pay.
Yeah, well, this is how we build our very comfortable, social system in France and compensation system in France. So we are really good at negotiating, and the Olympics is great leverage, as you said. So there are tons of company doing it, including the company running the Eiffel Tower.
I also quickly before you told me about the news you were bringing in, I found right the quick statistics here. What are the people who actually visit the Eiffel Tower? So 20% are the French, right? So people from France. So
Easily accessible.
those, I mean, you could argue that the French are in a way affecting the French, right? So if anything at all, the people who are going to be most
We are hurting
disadvantaged.
each other. We're hurting ourselves.
Maybe, right? Right. I think a lot of people have, for example, a stereotype that the Chinese are overrunning the French Eiffel Tower and it's gonna fall apart and this blow up. But actually, you can't even see it. Actually, it's right after Netherlands. It's right around 2% as well. So China is way lower than, I mean, for France by itself, or those dirty UK people that come over and visit. Exactly. So. I mean, interesting to know, right? We'll see how this turns out. We also had a few news, right, a few months ago that the France was plagued by bed bugs and trains, and it sounds like just
Which
yes,
which has been proven to be Russian powered misinformation.
Russian powered. Okay, Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah.
Putin
It's
is
the Russian government that
Putin is
yeah
personally
that
interested.
they try to spread that. Yep, yep, yep. They try to spread that to
Are,
diminish.
are you serious or are you joking? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
No, no, it's been. I'll try to find an article on that the next time, for the next time. But this definitely been checked by our spying agencies, or was it the GSI or the GSE? I forgot. But
So,
I'll try to find the article.
so the bed bugs. I mean, did they put the bed bugs in there, or was it like misinformation? Because it could have been really
I
funny.
think to a certain I think is it true to a certain extent? Yes, but was it a war against bed bugs? No. Paris has never
I
been like
see.
it's not like you walk down as like a family of bed bugs from the UK asking you where is the Eiffel Tower. This is not a thing. It's never been a thing.
Thank you for
But
for coming over
apparently,
and
it's been proven that there's a lot of Russian accounts that were, you know,
complaining about it.
spreading this type of spreading this type of misinformation and all this.
I mean, quite honestly, right? For example, the sources we cited were Euronews and a few others. So maybe they should be fact checking this a bit more accurately when they report on
Yes.
massive problems of bed bugs in the French SNCF. So that's a very
I mean,
interesting. Yeah.
those videos are real for sure. There's no like it's legit. But was it an invasion? Absolutely not.
I mean, yeah, it's also right in this case. Maybe it's difficult to judge what is more accurate, because if you would ask SNCF, obviously they're not going to say, "Well, we're being overrun. Please help. We're all gonna die soon." So, I mean, fair enough to some extent, I suppose. Um, well, on that note, I think we can jump onto a few more simpler pieces of news. So what we have here is basically something I quickly found. It's the so think about it following, right? Loyalty of guests staying in hotels. Would you say it's huge? How many people come back to hotels once they
Overall,
yeah, overall, like on average, industry average.
let's go with a third.
Well, you actually slightly underestimated. So what we have here is customer return rate. Um, Hospitality has 55%. So it's
Okay.
not too bad. However, it is the lowest the lowest customer return rate amongst all the industries that a recent study by HKC, right, Statista and ChartMogul basically did. So we can look here. Media, I think maybe is obvious, right? You buy the same newspaper all the time, right? You don't really jump from that. Uh, right, then the healthcare, I suppose, you can see here it's low, in brackets, but it's still 77%. And I mean, right, you usually go to the same doctor, but hospitality, right, is 55%. And obviously the study doesn't really go into why, right? But I think we can maybe assume that right, there's so many choices, right? For example, in terms of newspapers, right, you're not going to buy a new newspaper every week. That's just disorienting, and that's the reason why we are here, right? That's what we're trying to do, is aggregate all the information, right? But in hospitality, right, I think maybe it's usually there is a stereotype that at around the age of 65 you start going to the same place over and over and over again, right? But prior to that, you're more keen to explore new things every year, or even like some multiple times a year, depending on your budget, right? So yeah, any thoughts on this one?
Oh, I think you're right. There's just a very plurality of offers, and it would have been interesting to see what's the number for business hospitality and leisure hospitality, because companies usually have deals with hotels, with chain of hotels, So that's a lot of repeaters. But I think when it comes to leisure, there's this trend in hospitality where we value the guests seem to value a lot more the experience at the destination rather than the services, the quality of services at the hotel. So I think people are looking to have a good deal, which means that this is the decision is driven by the rate of the room. So it's if I can have a better deal with someone else, I will go with someone else. I'm not going to necessarily come back to the same hotel. It's a bit the same for airplanes when you think of it. What you want is, the cheapest way to go from point A to point B, and that's it. There's very little people that says, "Oh, I only fly on Lufthansa first. I only do that." There's like a very, very few people that
I'm also, I mean, this is probably a good metric for people who operate a hotel, right? Right. Obviously, this study isn't, covering the entire world. It's mostly U.S. based, right? Europe based, so it might be very different. Let's say in India or anywhere else for that matter, right? So, but still, 55% is pretty high. I would also assume it's 30.
it's not bad.
Yeah, right. So, if you are below that, maybe you should look at your offering and see, just as a quick
But it's
tip.
very hard to build loyalty to guests. It's not with your little loyalty card and you spend some night and you get points incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that you put the French accent on that. That kind of works really well.
Yeah, but he actually had a very crappy English accent. But anyway, I think it's very difficult because ultimately you sell a clean, safe night, and as you said, so many people do that or actually pretend doing this. So I think it's very difficult to build loyalty. Very, very challenging.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, right, if your distribution strategy is mostly selling to tour operators that just bunch up 50 people in a bus, those people aren't very likely to come back to you, right?
Never.
They don't care. They don't even know where they're going. They just booked a trip and
Yeah,
to
they
some
book the package. Yeah. No, you're
exactly.
right. You're right.
So, all right. On that note, we have, I think, at this point, a regular piece of news that you bring in, which is, the cruise industry. In fact, you brought two pieces of news.
Hey.
Uh, Please elaborate. What is so exciting about cruises this week?
Well, Regent Seven Seas is a company that is considered to be the most luxurious on passenger vessels. And it's very interesting to see that they're doing this partnership with Aston Martin, with the Formula One team of Aston Martin. So this is a great marketing deal because, of course, there are going to be logos everywhere on the car. So if you're an Aston Martin Formula One fan, you're going to see that the company is partnering with Regent. So you're going to be interested in traveling with Regent. If you like Formula One and you travel with Regent, you're going to say, oh, they're partnering with Aston Martin, so maybe I'm going to get special deals with that as well. So this partnership is going to be very profitable for both companies. And what I really like is that the ships are also going to have specific itineraries stopping in the countries where there's going to be a Grand Prix. So all this is kind of a mix that enables a lot of the fans from Aston Martin and a lot of the fans slash guests of Regent Seven Seas to mix together. And that's a really good way, in my opinion, to stimulate sales for both companies because Regent Seven Seas is super expensive. So we can assume that those clients, a few of them at least, can afford maybe Aston Martin cars. So I just thought it was very cool. And it really shows how the hospitality industry and the cruise industry is really trying to connect with what's happening on land, it's trying to connect with other interesting sports, interesting activities, and just wanted to share with you guys because I think it's pretty nice. We have seen this for other cruise line. For instance, the French cruise line Ponant has some golfing itineraries where they partner with different golfs, or they have partnership with specific magazines, and there's some people from the magazine that come and do some lectures. So this type of co-branding is happening more and more, and I think it brings some more interesting and innovative products to the guests. So I think this is on the right way, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool brand deal. I know people who are extremely passionate about Formula One to an extent that I'm not passionate about anything in my life, probably. So,
It's a religion.
right. I mean, for Regent as well, that might be something to jump on, right? If you uh, I'm not sure if people will become, you know, kind of a co fans of the region because of that. But yeah, sounds like a perfect deal.
Well, it seems that if you book the ship, the cruise, and the ship goes to the Grand Prix, there's some staff from the Formula One that's going to come on board. Maybe the pilots, they're going to give a lecture and things like that. So this is a real true value for Formula One fans. It's a great added value to the cruise.
But
So I think it's brilliant.
but the question is, do you get a discount if you're a Formula One fan?
Probably not. We pay more.
Correct. You have a referral link where you have a
Honestly,
10 above
when you
10%
pay for
price.
a cruise, you don't really care much about 10%, to be honest. Because
Yeah, it's
cruise
just
is
money.
pricey, but the service is excellent.
They probably have like a fire pit where you just throw money in, right? And then, you know, it just
Yeah, it's called my pockets.
fair enough. um,
The cruise tip box.
I think on that note, we can jump on to the next piece of news. I've brought something of value. Let's put it this way as well. It's so basically there was a study. Once again, right? I think I mostly bring studies into this.
Studies here.
Exactly. And it was basically looking into short-term rentals. So it's from a Lighthouse, right? They're a software, right? It's kind of self-interested, right? They're doing this to attract attention because what they do is effectively study statistics for, basically trends for short-term rentals for people, especially who operate short-term rentals. You know, something like AirDNA. I don't know if you know that, right? And they made a recent report, and the report itself is. Right, it's kind of all over the place. However, there's a few different interesting, I would say, interesting findings. So, for example, the first graph that they went into is the growth of short-term rentals. So, how many short-term rentals they have increased, and then also versus hotels, right? So, let's say. Istanbul, for example, right? Short-term rentals have decreased by 15% there, and hotels have increased by 1%, right? And then you can go into different locations and you can see how this changed so drastically, right? It's kind of all over the place. There is no average. I mean, yes, you can average this out, right? And you will get some number, but it doesn't represent anything because there is no correlation between the cities.
Yeah,
So, for example, Tokyo, it's right at the bottom. Unfortunately, you're covering with your shoulder there, right? It had an huge increase of 37% of short-term rentals, and then yes, and then a 53% increase of hotel rooms. Or Singapore, right? 125% increase and a 13% drop of short-term rentals. That's just fascinating, right? The differences in that. There is no Barcelona in here, right? So for example, there is, right? Barcelona has increased as well, even though there's a lot of rules in place that are banning this. But still, there's an increase of both hotel rooms and short-term rentals. Now, this is just one graph, right? There's another one that goes into, ADR changes and stuff. However, this one I found also quite interesting. Ratings. So you can see basically average ratings, right, on various OTA platforms of professionally operated short-term rentals, private short-term rentals, independent hotels, and chain hotels, right? So they're basically trying to compare similar, apples to apples in a way. So obviously there was a drop during COVID. Everybody was unhappy. It's hard to make people happy when you have to sit inside and do nothing, and probably there was a lot of cancellations, right? So it kind of makes sense. However, what you can see is the highest ratings, at least in the pool that they looked at. I'm not sure how representative it is, right? Blah blah blah. But private short-term rentals have the highest average ratings amongst all four categories, right? Then comes the independent hotels, right? So they are also higher than the professional run short-term rentals and chain hotels. And then right at the bottom is chain hotels. Fair enough. They have to operate kind of like a factory, so it's hard for them to maybe make it very personalized. And then which I'm a little bit surprised about is the professionally run short-term rentals. I would actually assume that they should have been higher on the score, but I guess it's the same logic as for chain hotels, right? They kind of systemize it, make it the same, and maybe it loses its spirit, and so people rate it lower. However, on average, right, and that's the most important thing, is the ratings have also dropped for all of them compared to 2019 and 2018 levels, right? So the industry isn't getting better, at least in the eyes of of the guests. So, or at least there is maybe more on the offer, right, as we saw, and so maybe the newcomers are maybe not as great as the ones that operated before, perhaps, right? It would be, you need to go into a deeper deeper dive and to find that out. But so yeah, thoughts?
It's very interesting. Yeah, no, on this graph in particular, I was wondering, could this be, first of all, everything drops.
Mm-hmm.
It means something, especially when it comes to the private and professional short-time rent. Remember when Airbnb was created? What was fun with it was, one, it's cheaper, and two, you get welcomed by the owner. The owner is showing you around. There's like this relationship between the guest and the owner, which slowly disappeared and was totally killed by COVID because we could not interact anymore. So could this also explain why private short-term rentals and even professional short-term rentals have been seeing some sort of a drop in their ranking, because this interaction is now completely gone, and also, by the way, because the price is outrageously expensive now, even more expensive than hotels. Maybe
I
that's where
I would say
the guest would go.
it would be probably the latter, right? Because there is an obvious relationship between price and satisfaction. So the higher the price, you can you have some sort of an equilibrium for any type of property, right? At certain level of
Fair enough.
price, you reach the highest potential in terms of ratings, and then the higher you go, the lower the rating, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, though, right, it's not also just the COVID. It's just like things like Nuki, for those who don't know, digital key systems where, you basically are trying to set up your Airbnb so that you never see a guest, right? Theoretically, because
Yeah,
let's say, I mean,
but that goes against the point.
yeah, no, fair enough, right? But how could you, right? I mean, especially for professional operators, let's say you have 60 Airbnbs across town, and I know several people who work in companies like this. All of those wonderful 60 Airbnbs are allocated basically in random places. It's very rare that they manage to sign, one big building and, have like 20 Airbnbs in
Of
there.
course,
And then so as a
probably
result,
legal as well.
so yeah, right. And then how do you run around? It can take you an hour depending on the city to get from one place to another. So you'd rather have a Nuki system and automate everything. And but following your logic though, right? Chain hotels and independent hotels also have dropped, right? You can see the 2008 levels were, in fact, actually everything in 2008 was much closer to each other than it is now. So it has spread a little bit, the sort of the distance between the chain hotel and the private STR. But on overall, all of them have dropped, right? Not just STR. So it's maybe
Yeah, I agree.
it's definitely the price, probably, for sure, right? And then maybe other things. Maybe chain hotels are also trying to automate, right? I don't know.
Well, imagine for the short-term rentals, you used to pay less and have a better service. Now you pay more and you have no more service. And for the hotel, you used to pay less to have a certain service. The service is about the same, if not a little bit less today than it was 10 years ago, and you pay more anyway. So obviously everything is going to go down.
Yep, very, very, very exciting for the guests. But
Yes.
it's an opportunity, right? For those, you have to just look at this and you think, okay, what was done before, how it changed, and how can I offer that now so that I can be on top of that, right? And there's still those players, that have 4.9 out of 5 on Airbnb, right? Professional or otherwise. So
I guess also because the product is less complex. A hotel has to be clean, but everywhere the pool has to work, blah, 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 blah. Where when you rent a condo or an apartment, it's also a lot simpler to manage, I would say. So probably that's also why there's less, messed up, let's say,
stress, yeah.
but everything's more expensive and service is going down. So you pay more for less. Obviously, people will be more critical.
I'd love to put hostels on this one just to see how that's like, where the rating there is. But that will
Very
be
curious as well.
probably very, very much all over the place. Also, cruises, right? It's hard to. Do cruises have some sort of a system, like a aggregate OTA that you can book cruises on, where you can see the reviews, or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's like travel agencies online, OTAs that are specialized in selling cruise lines.
Booking.com
Thank you
actually
very
jumped on the train, right? Recently, they started offering cruises just recently. So we'll see that.
much. So most of the time, you don't really review. I mean, it's difficult because do you review the itinerary or do you review the vessel? So it's a little bit different. Most of the time, it's more of a qualitative type of rating than a quantitative. So you would go on travel blogs and read what the travel blogger said about the room, about the food, the entertainment,
That
the
are
itinerary, and all these things.
that are definitely not sponsored by those very cruise ships that they are reviewing, right? 100% not.
Never,
That would be very,
never.
as they say, people on the internet don't lie. So
Absolutely, yes. So it's a little bit harder to give an evaluation to a ship or an itinerary or a cruise line. But of course, you know that Regent is a lot more luxurious and full of services than Carnival Cruise Line, for instance. You know, plus or minus the positioning of each cruise line compared to each other. So, yeah, that's a bit harder for us, I guess.
all right. Do we have time for one more? I think we do. There is a few different ones we've you can look at our newsletter where we go through a lot more. We kind of try to pick the best here, but um, I think I have. Let's go through one more. This one is going to be very very boring, at least for some. Basically, there has been an academic study, right? The people are usually very excited
Hey.
when you get into that, right? And it's been looking into ESG metrics. So what are those, right? For those who don't know, basically all the different businesses out there are now trying to become eco-friendly, more sustainable, right? And a study looked at, I think, over 600 different reviews, 600 different studies, academic studies into the industry as how they're trying to deal with ESG. Right, so with this, you can imagine interviewing the corporate leadership, looking into how guests react to this, and the findings were that at the moment, the main focus industry is to make sure that the guests are happy, so that they're basically trying to market your ESG metrics to whoever, and B, you have your corporate goals that you need to perform in some sort of a metric on the stock market, right? You need to pretend that you're ESG friendly in a way. And then C, right, which is more or less the same. It's kind of corporate governance. How do CEOs and so on and forth impact this? But in a nutshell, what the study actually concluded is that currently nobody has actually really defined well what ESG means. So it's just a lot of cool words that people look into, but effectively, a lot of hotel businesses and people in businesses in the hospitality sector are not actually trying to look at bottom line numbers of how much water you've wasted, how could you've improved it, right? It's mostly looking at how can we make sure that our our stakeholders, shareholders are happy, and the guests are booking our rooms because we advertise it correctly. So it's not a right, it's one of those studies. It's not as exciting as I'm not sure reading something about let's say Formula One, right? But it's actually goes into a lot of details that are important for the industry. So
No, but it's interesting. But what you said about the cost control, I think it's very interesting because um, it's just data, right? But it's very hard to gather this data. And I remember a incredibly weird conference on board a ship, big ship, where there's this big shot corporate that comes and say, okay, guys, we need to be careful on the waste because it's not very eco-friendly. So we're gonna equip every ship with those scales, and it was pretty much a scale with like a touch screen, and every time you waste food, you're supposed to scale it and enter it on the pad.
I'm sure it was done every time flawlessly.
Exactly, that's the point. So the company would gather data on which is a great idea because it helps you to, shorten the cost. You can, like, do you need to make 500 liters of soup every day if only 20 liters is eaten? It's a real financial and eco question. But how can you expect hospitality workers to do this? It's like,
I think it applies to everyone, right? Whenever you add new tasks to people, they really have to align with their own interests, right? And especially when it comes to like tracking something like this, right? The less you track, the better your metrics are in a way. So you are actually, setting your people to motivate them to say, well, we wasted less because we didn't weigh it, basically, right? We're a great ship. We don't waste any food.
Oh my God, yes. Never.
Especially on cruise ships, right? On the buffets, everything gets eaten. Those pesky tourists just clean the plates.
I saw people fighting for meat, so everything is eaten, definitely.
Fighting for meat. I think on that note we can conclude this week's podcast. Thank you very much for joining, everyone, and
Pleasure.
thank you, I guess, Jeremy, for bringing your pieces of news. I think it's a very good insight that I don't bring. So I guess I see you next week.
It'll be a pleasure.
Yep.